is Techstrong TV.
Hey everyone, it's Alan Schimmel back here on Techstrong TV. I'm really happy to have a guest on today who I've wanted to have on for some time. You know, we've been covering digital AI, I think from the very day it was launched, I remember. Derek is going to give you a little of that background. But Derek Holt is the CEO at Digital.ai. It's great to have him on here, and can't wait to talk to him about it. Derek, welcome to Techstrong TV.
Thanks, Alan. Super excited to be here and looking forward to catching up.
Absolutely. So you know what, before we jump into the digital AI story, Derek, we really should talk a little bit about you, right? How long have you been CEO over at Digital AI, and kind of, what'd you do before that? Why don't you share a bit?
Absolutely. So I've been with Digital.ai since summer of 2020. So really those early days that you highlighted as we were forming the company, and we can talk a little bit more about sort of that background. I came in originally as a general manager for a kind of a subset of the company, and then became CEO here at the beginning of this year. So it's been a super exciting run. I'm a software guy by training. They don't let me write code anymore, which is probably good for our customers, but I still do it on the weekends. But I got my start early days. For those that remember the early days of Eclipse, I was part of the team at IBM that was working on that, worked with the Rational software. So the early days of agile transformations and into early DevOps, and then spent about a decade in kind of 2011 to 2020 doing different venture-backed startups, but always in software, always in enterprise, and always been just a huge fan of the space that we get to both live in every day.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. And then, I mean, we've kind of beat around the bush a little bit about digital AI, but digital AI was originally formed as the result of a combination of a few, pretty like best-in-class companies within the DevOps space, right? And
Yep.
You know the story better than I don't want to put words in your mouth. Why not you kind of?
Yeah, it's interesting. So if you go back to 2019, I think the opportunity that we saw in the marketplace was to build a purpose-built company that focused on enterprise customers in this DevSecOps space, of course. And that meant we got to do these things at scale, right? We can't just be agile at the team level or have one pipeline that is automated. We got to be able to do this at very, very complex, globally distributed scale. Second, it meant heterogeneous environments, not just heterogeneous tool chains, but also we need to be able to build capabilities that support the realities of large-scale banks and insurance companies. And that's 40, 50, maybe 60 years of software archaeology, right? You got everything from the mainframe all the way through the latest in cloud and mobile and containers and Kubernetes. And then lastly, we saw the opportunity to also be a little bit more forward-leaning around data. And you and I were talking about this a little bit. Obviously, you can't turn on a TV show without talking about AI these days. But we had Digital.ai in our name well before the latest wave in large language models and generative. And the huge part of that thesis was when you do these business processes at scale, right? You have a tremendous amount of data, but historically, it's been locked in these product-specific, domain-specific data warehouses. And yes, I can give you a burn down chart, and yes, I can give you some views into how our testing is progressing, but nobody was able to give an end-to-end view, both how you build software. Are you good at the process of building software end-to-end? But also, did it matter? Was the value being delivered to the customer? So bridging not only all the tools on the development side, but also in production. And frankly, assuming, which I think is really, really critical, kind of focusing on the enterprise, we assume heterogeneous environments because that's what we run into 100% of the time. And so it allowed us to kind of take that view and say, hey, we're not only going to support data sources that are our own, but hundreds of data sources and integrations beyond that, which again is the reality of the enterprise.
Sure is. I listening to you and shaking my head saying this is all true. I think one of the first things, though, I want to make clear to our audience is, I'm doing this DevOps. We're doing DevOps.com. It's coming on 10 years. And we've seen this evolution transition from DevOps to DevSecOps, right? Truth be told, I got into DevOps because I'm a security guy. I've been in security for 25 years. I thought it was going to be great for security. That was why I did it. But now we've really seen it kind of full bloom, right? DevOps is DevSecOps. And it's the same thing with Digital.ai, right? You guys are all about DevSecOps and how important it is, not just to the security people, not just to the DevOps engineers, not just to the developers, but to the entire organization here. Now, bringing this full circle to AI and what we've seen, you're right. You guys always had AI in your name from day one, and I'll testify to that. And that was before people were talking about generative AI and LL, large language modules and so forth. But there was a lot of, back then I call it kind of the machine learning phase of AI, if you will, the MLAI kind of stuff. And just because we're all, as an industry, we're very shiny trinket focused, right? Just because we got this new shiny trinket doesn't mean that MLAI kind of technology was bad or gets thrown out with the bathwater, right? I want your opinion, Derek, is when we look at DevSecOps and AI now, right? Because everybody's talking about that. Talk to me. What AI are we talking about? Some of it, all of it, which parts of it, what's real, what's not?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple pieces there. First of all, I totally agree with you. Internal to Digital.ai and a lot of other companies, we have been saying DevSecOps for a long time. It's been very clear to me over the last 18 months or so that has now become the label everywhere, right? And in some ways, it's just one of those things as things continue to transform. But as always, it's about automating and having repetitive, measurable processes to make it easier for us to deliver high quality, high secure, et cetera, code to market. So those market pressures have only increased to say we got to continue to do more and more and more, but we got to be able to go fast with confidence. And that's one of the other pieces for us, because, and I've always thought about this as a real, almost a superpower, is that we get to focus on a subset of the market. That's not to say we love startups, we love small businesses, but we wake up every day thinking about the enterprise. And when you have the luxury of just thinking about that one set of entities, it allows you to make some decisions a little bit more quickly and a little bit more obviously around what does DevSecOps mean, not just generally, but what does it mean to a large scale bank or a large scale insurance company or a government entity. So I totally agree with you that we've kind of flipped the page there, and I'm excited because I think you're going to also see more and more quality automation coming in, especially with this pending acceleration of productivity that may be coming from the large language models and the generative. But to answer your core question on AI, and I think about this very, very simply, what is the right data mechanism to solve a real business problem? So to me, whether we're using a simple regression or we're using machine learning or we're going as far as using large language models and generative, it really does have to go back to what's the problem we're trying to solve and what is the right instrument to solve that problem. I was just on this week with an executive at a large scale customer of ours, and they were describing that in some ways the comment was who cares if it's AI in the context of the latest generative? Does it solve the business problem at hand? Now, great news is we got a whole bunch of additional tools now at our disposal, and all of these different elements have a role to play, but clearly your point is well taken, which is some of it is a lot. There's a fair bit of hype. There always is. I think we all can agree that the notion that we're going to see pretty significant productivity gains, that we're going to see pretty interesting evolutions around the topic of citizen development that we've talked about a long time, or we talk a lot about citizen testers, right, where we can just use natural language to generate automation test cases. I think we all know that's going to happen. I am sure there'll be the hype and then the fall and then the stabilization that we've always seen. But for us, it's about how do we make not just individuals more productive, but really, really importantly, and I think this is critical, how do we make teams and organizations more productive? Because a lot of the announcements, a lot of the hype to date has been really around how do I make a individual developer, an individual tester, et cetera, more productive. Super important. But when you think about that, how do I then get that to production? We've got a lot of customers today that are struggling to take the human-generated code all the way to production in a timely, secure manner. Imagine if we've got 3, 4, 5, 10x the amount of code that we've got to get into production. It puts a tremendous amount of strain on those pipelines. So getting folks ready for this pending kind of industrial revolution type productivity enhancement, if you believe what we're reading these days, I think is really, really critical.
Absolutely. It really is. Hey, Derek, I don't want to make it, a product pitch, but let's do some real life examples of how, all these different types of AI and so forth are finding their way into, let's say, the products at Digital.ai.
It's a great question. So we think about it, and we actually just made an announcement on this earlier this week, I think. The days are all blending together, but certainly over the last few days, we think about it right now in 3 big buckets, right? So first and foremost, we're thinking about how do we use these AI solutions to kind of power workflows that everyone's doing. So whether you're in our enterprise agile planning tools, or you're in our testing tools, or you're in our release orchestration, deployment automation solutions, our security, our application protection tools, how do we use AI to accelerate? So a great example there is one of the things we highlighted this recent announcement was being able to take free-form text and automatically generate automated test scripts with it, right? So we call it text to test, very basic test creation. And that notion is going to accelerate those workloads, right? Because as we all know, we often run out of time testing more than we ran out of all the tests when we think about the way that quality is thought of. And we're doing that in the planning phases. We're doing this in the threat analytics phases. We're doing it in things as simple as our knowledge assist. So instead of searching our knowledge base, you'll be able to talk to our knowledge base, right? For lack of better terminology. So, I think all of those are very, very important. The teams are demoing some really, really cool stuff that's coming after it. But I think everybody's going to do those things, right? Like that's going to be the reality. You're seeing it across the board. The 2 other areas that we highlighted that we think are uniquely Digital.ai. The first is governing AI-based code that was generated, right? And the idea there is all of the best practices with DevSecOps that you and I have been around for a while to watch. They were best practices when humans were developing the code. They are now must-haves when we have code that may have been generated beyond. And it's now not just security and quality, it's compliance, it's governance, it's other elements to make sure that we can take advantage. And we talk about internally, how do we responsibly take advantage of the benefits that are coming from AI? So we highlighted a whole set of capabilities in our core DevSecOps portfolio that are sort of tuned into understanding what it means to bring generated code, or at least a subset of the code that has been generated, to production safely, responsibly, et cetera. And then lastly, really the something we've been doing, going back, you mentioned we formed a company through a series of acquisitions, a company called Numerify that has been doing this for the better part of a decade. We announced a series of enhancements to our predictive intelligence solution. So this is breaking down those data silos, as you highlighted, and then being able to give not just 360-degree rear view views across tool stacks, across production and development, across different domains, but also to predict the future based on the past. And we've been doing this at scale with large scale, Fortune 100 type companies for years now, but it's around our change risk prediction model, our service management process optimization models, our flow acceleration model, which is getting a lot of excitement now, but it's about using that data to make better business decisions as we drive things forward. So, it's one of the things we talk about internally. We want to paint a vision of where this is all going, but we're doing this stuff today. I mean, we're working with, maybe since we last chatted, but 50% of the Fortune 100, over 50% are customers of ours, right? 8 out of the 10 largest banks in the US, 8 out of the 10 largest banks in Europe. It goes on and on and on. And we're just super excited to be able to work on these problems at scale and in these complex environments, right?
Yep. I'm listening to you, though. Part of me shakes my head because you're like, everybody's going to be doing this. Everyone's doing it. Sometimes we forget, Derek, we live in a bubble, man. You live in a bubble. True. I live in that bubble too, where of course we're using these AI tools to talk to our knowledge base and to spin up, tests based upon just natural language, stuff. You know what, Derek? I'm going to venture to say that maybe 15% of vendors are doing that right now. And maybe another I don't know, 35. This is classic crossing the chasm, right?
Yeah.
We're in early adopter land here.
That's right.
Let alone that first, the first 30%, which is that first early mainstream, if you want to call it. But this is still radical. This is still kind of brand new for a lot of people in our audience. And it's crazy. I mean, the fact that you can talk and basically spin up testing based upon what you tell it you want.
Yep.
Pretty damn cool.
It is cool. I think too, the part that we do have to remind ourselves, because you're right, we always have the latest this is our careers, right? This is what we wake up every day thinking about.
It's our world.
The biggest thing that I am excited, it makes me excited about it, is I have this absolute privilege to spend time with a lot of CIOs and CTOs, as I know you do, right? And we get to kind of see what's happening in reality, right, at a large bank or at a large insurance company, where it's much more complicated, right? And I think this is one of the unique things. I've done a series of venture-backed startups and the decisions you do when you're a venture-backed startup, and there's 10 of us, we can go really, really quickly. And if we make a mistake, it doesn't really matter, right? And there's a lot of that piece, but doing these things at scale is hard. And at the same time, I have been really, really excited to see some of the momentum that is building in the market around companies that are 100, 150 years old. If you go back in time. And one of the things I always kind of talk to the leaders there about, and I think this holds true, is this isn't a binary, right? This is a continuum, and it's a journey, not a destination. And so part of the advice I would give, if anybody was so inclined to ask me for advice, is get started on a small piece of it, because you're going to get benefit, and it's going to stack on top. And this wave is no different than when we had the early DevOps waves, no different than we had the early agile development wave. You've just got to not get kind of stuck and not get started. You just got to take one foot in front of the other, and benefits come.
I'll be honest, like you, we've been through a lot, right? Yes, I remember the DevOps wave, obviously. Look, I remember when everyone was talking about cloud, and you went on a VC pitch, and they said, well, what's your cloud story, right? You had to have a cloud story.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly right.
But this feels different. This feels more like when the internet first started coming out, where it's not just going to change people like you and me, Derek. This is going to change all your relatives who call you up for IT advice all the time, right? They're going to start talking to their thing. And I'm not talking about Siri stuff. I'm talking about real, talk to my phone or whatever my device is and get stuff done. And it's going to have civilization-wide impact, not just our industry-wide impact. But companies like Digital.ai are going to be out in the forefront on this, on utilizing this to make your core mission, which is making your users more secure, faster, better.
That's right.
It's going to bring it to them faster. And I think that's the takeaway here.
I think that is a big takeaway. Now, I'm okay if I get less tech support phone calls from my family members. So if we can figure that out, that's a great situation.
Amen.
But look, I think we wake up every day thinking about our goal, which is to help enterprises unlock these digital possibilities, right? As they think about it. And we spend most of our time with folks that were around before the internet. So, they're more traditional enterprises, but have woken up now and or really over the last few decades and realized, holy cow, I'm a software company, really. And I just happen to be in a certain industry. And it's so, to me, inspiring to see them thriving and driving the market forward. But no doubt, as with all of these waves, there's going to be probably some job destruction. There'll be some job creation that comes from it as well. We as a broader economy got to kind of make sure everybody's paying attention to that. But for me, everybody should at least be aware of what's going on, should see how they can use it in their day-to-day workflows. Because to your point, there was a point in time when folks said, hey, this internet thing was a fad, right? And clearly that has not been the case. Yeah, for sure.
I was talking to a VC the other day. We did an interview, and he said something that really hit this home for me, and I think it's the perfect cherry here, which is, 10 years ago, we were saying every company's a software company, right? And software is going to eat the world. Today, every company's an AI company.
Yeah.
Right? And Digital.ai was out in front, right? You had the name 4 years ago. So, but that's where we are. Hey, Derek, people obviously can go to digital.ai to get started.
Absolutely.
And find out more.
Absolutely. Yep. You can go to our website. There's a bunch of great AI content there. There's a bunch of the new announcements that we made. And again, Alan, huge thanks for having us on, for what you all do to continue to push the industry forward. It's an exciting time. I'm sure there'll be ups and downs and hypes and kind of the troughs of disillusionment, I think is the terminology that is often used.
It's not always the hockey stick.
Right. Exactly. But this is, I think I'm with you. This is a real inflection point in the industry. And it's a privilege to kind of have a front seat at it. Right.
Yeah, no. Well, look, you guys are leading it. You were way out ahead on this. Good for you, man. Keep it up. Come back and keep us posted on this. Okay, Derek?
You got it. Have a good one, Alan. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Derek Holt, CEO, Digitalai, here on Techstrong TV. You could probably catch this interview as well on Techstrong.ai, DevOps.com, Security Boulevard. We're going to take a break on Techstrong TV. We'll be back in a minute.